All right, get ready because we're going deep today, like really deep. We're diving into the world of genetic theory.
Sounds exciting.
It is. We're going to be using The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins,
Yeah.
specifically the 30th anniversary edition.
Oh, a classic.
Really makes you rethink evolution, like flips the script.
Yeah, Dawkins definitely presents a unique perspective. It's not that he disproves Darwin, but more like
Like it gives you a whole new lens.
exactly. He helps us see evolution from the perspective of, well, the gene.
So instead of focusing on organisms, we're thinking about genes.
Precisely. Dawkins argues that genes are the real immortals, always copying themselves, moving from one body to the next across generations.
So we're basically just vehicles.
In a way, yeah. Dawkins calls organisms survival machines, just temporary carriers for the genes.
Wow. So a gene that's like a million years old?
It's just as young as a 100-year-old gene. You got it.
Mind-blowing. But, okay, if genes are all about their own survival, how do you explain altruism?
Ugh, great question. See, we need to look at altruism and selfishness from an evolutionary angle. It's not about feelings. It's about actions and how they affect survival and reproduction.
Okay, so like a bird risking its life to warn the flock about a predator.
Right. Seems selfless, right. But it could actually benefit the survival of its genes, even if the individual bird doesn't make it.
So it's not about the individual, it's about the genes.
You got it. And this leads us to kin selection. Basically, relatives share a bunch of their genes, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So by helping a relative, even if it costs you something, you're indirectly helping your own genes get passed on.
Ah, I see. Like a mother bird protecting her chicks. It's all about those genes surviving.
Exactly. And it gets even weirder. Dawkins suggests that a mother, even though she's equally related to all her kids,
Might favor some over others.
you got it. It all depends on which chick has the best chance of survival.
Oh, wow. Survival of the fittest, but like within a family.
Exactly. It's about maximizing that genetic investment, so to speak. And this actually ties into another fascinating area, the battle of the sexes.
The battle of the sexes. Now we're talking. Tell me more.
Well, it starts with the basic difference between eggs and sperm. Eggs are big, costly for the female. Sperm, tiny and plentiful.
Oh, so it's like each potential offspring is a much bigger deal for the female.
Exactly. So females are naturally more picky about their mates. Males, on the other hand.
Have to try harder.
Yeah, they've evolved all sorts of strategies to up their chances. You see those elaborate courtship displays.
Like a peacock showing off its feathers.
Yeah, high risk, high reward. Flashy might attract females, but also predators.
So it's like he's saying, look how strong I am. I can survive even with these crazy feathers.
Ah, something like that. Females, though, they're playing the long game. Looking for good genes, resources, good parenting skills.
Making a long-term investment, not just about looks.
Exactly. Sometimes that leads to cooperation, a partnership to raise those offspring. Dawkins calls it domestic bliss.
So the battle of the sexes isn't always a battle.
Not always. Sometimes it leads to teamwork. But even when it's a battle, it's all driven by this underlying need to pass on genes.
Okay, but what about cooperation between individuals who aren't related? How does that fit into this whole selfish gene idea?
That's where things get even more interesting. It's about strategy, you see. Like in The Prisoner's Dilemma. Have you heard of it?
Vaguely. Remind me.
Two individuals, they have to decide. Cooperate or betray each other.
And betraying is the best if it's only happening once, right? Look out for number one.
Yeah, in a single round. But what if the same players keep interacting? Then things change. Cooperation can actually win out.
Oh, because you build up trust or...
Sort of. Dawkins points to a strategy called tit for tat. You cooperate first, then mirror your opponent's last move. They cooperate, you cooperate, they betray, you betray.
So it's like, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, but if you mess with me, I'll mess with you right back.
Haha, yeah. Simple but effective. Tit for tat can thrive even in a world of selfish individuals.
So even with selfish genes, cooperation can be a good strategy. That's surprisingly optimistic.
It is. But there's another layer to all of this. Memes.
Memes. Everyone loves a good meme. But what do they have to do with genes?
Well, Dawkins coined the term meme to describe those bits of culture that spread through imitation. Like genes, but for ideas.
Oh, like a catchy song you can't stop humming. Or a funny video everyone shares online.
Exactly. And these memes, they evolve too. Some stick around for ages, others disappear quickly.
So how do we measure a meme's success? Like, what makes one go viral?
Dawkins talks about longevity, fecundity, and copying fidelity.
Ooh, big words. Break those down for me.
Longevity is how long a meme lasts. Fecundity is how fast it spreads, and copying fidelity is how accurately it's copied. Think of that game Telephone.
Yeah, the message gets a little distorted each time.
Right, but some core idea usually makes it through. That's how memes shape our thoughts, behaviors, cultures.
So memes are like genes, but for culture. That's why.
Well, and just like genes, memes can clash with our genes. Consider the meme for celibacy.
Celibacy. But that goes against everything we've been talking about with genes wanting to spread.
Precisely. A gene for celibacy wouldn't last long. But the meme, it can spread like wildfire.
Because of cultural and religious reasons, right?
Exactly. Think about religious orders where celibacy is the norm. The meme gets passed down even if it hinders biological reproduction.
So memes can actually override our genetic programming.
That's the question, isn't it? It leads us to this fundamental question of free will. If we're just survival machines, built by genes and influenced by memes.
Do we really have any control? What a question to ponder. We've covered so much ground already, but I have one last question before we move on. So we've talked about how genes drive behavior, but how do they actually shape the physical world around us?
You're thinking about the extended phenotype, one of Dawkins's more mind-bending ideas.
Yeah, it's kind of blowing my mind. So genes can reach beyond the body.
Exactly. Remember, genes build brains, and brains control behavior, and that behavior can change the environment.
Okay, give me an example. Make it real for me.
Picture a beaver building a dam. That dam is a physical manifestation of the beaver's genes.
Because the genes give it the instinct to build, right?
Right. Those genes are expressing themselves, but not just in the beaver's body.
They're expressing themselves through the dam. It's like a giant beaver gene billboard.
I like that. And it's not just beavers. Birds building nests, spiders spinning webs.
Even parasites manipulating their hosts. We talked about that before. It's crazy.
All examples of the extended phenotype, the ripple effect of genes, shaping the world beyond the individual.
But how far can that ripple go? Can one gene really have that much power?
Dawkins would say absolutely. He points to the sheer complexity of life as proof.
So from a bee colony to a coral reef, it's all driven by.
The selfish pursuit of genes to keep replicating changes how you see the world, doesn't it?
It really does. Makes you appreciate the power of these tiny little things. But if we're all just driven by our genes,
The question of free will pops up again.
right? Do we have any control? Are we just puppets?
Dawkins grapples with that. He says the selfish gene idea doesn't automatically mean no free will.
So how do we reconcile the two? Genes influencing us, but also us making choices.
Think of it like this. Genes provide the blueprint, the starting point, but they don't control every single decision.
So we have some wiggle room.
Exactly. We have predispositions, tendencies, sure, but within those, we can still choose.
Like, our genes might make us crave sweets, but we decide whether to eat the cake.
Perfect analogy. Genes give us the ingredients, but we're the chefs. We decide what to cook up.
So it's nature and nurture working together.
Exactly. Genes and our environment, experiences, culture, all mixed together. That's what makes us each unique.
Makes sense. But here's another thought. If our genes are selfish, does that mean we are too? Are we all doomed to be selfish?
Lots of people struggle with that, but remember, kin selection. Helping family can actually benefit your own genes.
Right. Helping your kin is like helping yourself, genetically speaking.
Exactly. And even with unrelated individuals, cooperation can work out. Think back to the prisoner's dilemma.
Tit for tat. Cooperate until betrayed.
Right. And it's not just a theory. We see cooperation in nature all the time. Cleaner fish and bigger fish, different species working together. And of course, human societies are built on cooperation.
So even in a selfish gene world, cooperation can thrive.
Absolutely. And it's not always about being nice. Sometimes helping others just benefits you in the long run.
It's like enlightened self-interest.
You could say that. The selfish gene perspective doesn't have to be cynical. It can explain how cooperation evolves even in a competitive world.
That's a good point. It's not all doom and gloom. Okay, so we've got genes, behavior, environment, cooperation, even memes. But what about the future? Are humans still evolving?
The million-dollar question. And the answer is, it's complicated. Human evolution is definitely still happening, but the how and the why.
More complex than ever.
Exactly. Our genes still matter, of course, but technology, medicine, they've changed the game.
We don't need to outrun saber-toothed tigers anymore, so.
Those old evolutionary pressures are gone, but new ones have popped up. Climate change, antibiotic resistance. Our reliance on technology could even be a factor.
So the rules of the game keep changing.
You got it. Makes predicting the future of human evolution tricky. but definitely fascinating.
It is. It's mind-blowing to think about these tiny genes shaping the future of our whole
Uh,
species. But speaking of the future, I have one last question before we wrap up. If we're starting to get how genes and evolution work, could we use that knowledge to, like, shape our own future? Can we become uh, the architects of our own evolution?
You're talking about directed evolution, right? Intentionally guiding evolution towards specific
Yeah,
goals.
exactly. Is that even possible?
Well, it's not sci-fi anymore. We see it happening in genetic engineering, biotechnology.
So, like, instead of just letting evolution happen, we can...
Take the wheel a little bit. Yeah. We have tools to manipulate genes, select traits, even create new organisms.
That's amazing. But also kind of scary. I mean, think about it. Eliminating diseases, enhancing our brains. We could even adapt to climate change.
Exactly. Huge potential benefits, but huge responsibility too.
How do we make sure we don't mess things up? Evolution is a powerful force.
That's where the selfish gene idea comes in handy. Reminds us that even small changes can have big consequences.
The butterfly effect, but for genes.
Right. We have to think long term. Ethical implications, risks, effects on future generations.
We can't just think about ourselves, right?
Exactly. It's about the whole planet, the future of life itself. It's a challenge, no doubt.
It's like we're holding this powerful tool, but we need to learn how to use it responsibly. This whole deep dive has been incredible. We've gone from selfish genes to, like, the meaning of life, practically.
It really shows how the selfish gene idea helps us understand ourselves and the world around us. Makes you think differently.
For sure. Genes, behavior, cooperation, memes, it's all connected. And we got a glimpse of the future of evolution, too.
It's mind-blowing how these tiny genes shape so much. But the more we understand, the better choices we can make.
So true. Well, listeners, that's it for our deep dive into the selfish gene. We hope it sparked some new ideas, maybe even some healthy debate. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.